concentrate on for your upcoming test is the first three sections, that is thermal expansion of materials, then calorimetry, and then kinetic theory of gases. So I'm just going to take you through your module number 3, which has heat and thermodynamics, and just relate which is the portion you need to go through and some of the questions you need to do, so that you're prepared for the test coming up on Sunday. So this is the starting of the heat and thermodynamics section in your physics module 3. Just so I think most of you will have physical copies of this module. So this is the heat and thermodynamics portion. So as you can see, the first thing you have to go through in this is this heat and temperature concept. Okay, different temperature scales, heat as a form of energy. All these things we discussed in the first couple of lectures of heat and thermodynamics. Mechanical equivalent of heat, that is the relation between joule and calorie. Okay, this last portion here. So you have to go through all these things. Not much in terms of difficulty level. That is the first part of heat and thermodynamics with the numerical applications. So linear expansion, then surface expansion, then volume expansion, those formulae. Okay. Relation between alpha, beta, gamma, variation of density with temperature, apparent expansion of a liquid in a container, all these things we have discussed. Yeah. So these are the type of numerical applications you have to concentrate on. Okay. Then bimetallic strip, that was the last thing we had discussed. Then the variation of time period of a pendulum with respect to the coefficient of linear expansion and all that. So this the next section. So as you're going through this, please go through the solved examples or the illustrated examples and do the calculations once yourself. And that is all you'll require for that level of questions. Okay. Plus the questions I've done in class, you can go through them once more. Okay. Then this part you have to leave out for the moment. Okay. I know a number of students have been asking me about this also. This part, this thermal stress part, leave it out for this time because it is based on properties of matter, which is a chapter we'll be doing a little bit later. It's based on the chapter properties of matter, and in that the concept of elasticity. Okay, elasticity related to that is something called Young's modulus of elasticity. So these all we'll be doing in a later chapter. So leave this out for the moment. This will not be coming in the upcoming test because we'll be doing this in the later chapter. So hope this is clear to all of you people. Okay, so make sure you note this down that thermal stress is not coming in the upcoming test. Okay. Then after this, make sure to go through the solved examples for thermal expansion. In fact, you can do the solved examples as fresh questions yourself and then compare your solutions with the questions given. Also do the in chapter exercise. This will give you sufficient practice for thermal expansion. You don't need to do anything else. Okay. There'll be one or two questions which are based on thermal stress and leave out those questions. So for example, here you can see that question number 7 is based on thermal stress. So leave it out. Question number 6 is also based on thermal stress. But all the other questions you can do. Sorry, also question number 8. So leave out these 3 questions. The rest of the questions you can do. Okay. Then the second part of our heat and thermodynamics portion, which is calorimetry. So as you had seen in that, we discussed about specific heat capacity. Okay. So that starts with that concept over here. We had discussed specific heat capacity along with latent heat, but here it starts with specific heat capacity. And there's also concept of molar heat capacity. You can leave this out for the moment because we'll be discussing this in first law anyway. Okay. Then from specific heat capacity, there's heat capacity concept or thermal capacity. Okay. Also the concept of water equivalent, you can go through this. Okay. Water equivalent basically means that equivalent amount of water which has the same heat capacity. So I will just explain this concept later once to you, but this is something we have not discussed directly. Water equivalent. Water equivalent basically means an equivalent amount of water, an equivalent mass of water which has the same heat capacity. For example, if I say that this object made of some metal or something, it has a water equivalent of 50 grams, let's say. So what it means that it implies that the heat capacity of that material is equal to 50 grams multiplied by specific heat capacity of water. So the heat capacity is equal to 50 grams into 1 calorie per gram degree C. So the heat capacity is 50 calories per degree C. So it means that that metallic object, in order to heat it by 1 degree C, we need to supply a heat of 50 calories, or 50 into 4.2 joules per Kelvin. You can say that much. So this is the meaning of water equivalent. If the water equivalent is X number of grams, then the heat capacity is that X number of grams into specific heat capacity of water. So sometimes in questions you have, instead of the heat capacity of a material given, you have the water equivalent of a material given. Okay. So heat capacity of any material is nothing but its mass multiplied by its specific heat capacity. But in terms of water, heat capacity becomes the water equivalent amount of mass multiplied by specific heat capacity of water. So if you denote it with W, so as you can see, okay, this is the relation that the heat capacity of that material is equal to mW multiplied by Sn. The heat capacity Ms is the water equivalent multiplied by specific heat capacity of water. So that is this relationship. If anybody has a doubt in any of these terms, please let me know. We'll discuss again. Then we come to the part of state change and latent heat, which we discussed. Okay. So there's two types of latent heat. Latent heat of fusion, like for example, latent heat of fusion of ice is 80 calories per gram, and latent heat of vaporization for water vapor, it is nearly 540 calories per gram. So again, the main thing you have to concentrate in calorimetry is the heat exchange type of problems. Principle of calorimetry type of problems. Okay, principle of calorimetry being that heat given by the substance which is being cooled down is equal to the heat absorbed by the other substance which is getting heated. So those type of questions we have done where you have a mixture of ice and water or something else, and you have to find the final equilibrium temperature. So heat lost has to be equated with heat gained. So make sure to revise the questions we've done in class because they're of more tricky level than these questions. And then you can go through the solved examples and the this thing in chapter exercise. It will be enough. You just do this in chapter exercise. It will be enough for this. Yeah, Durgesh, it will be given. You don't have to memorize the values of latent heat or even specific heat capacity of water. No, 1 gram, 1 calorie per gram degree C. You don't have to memorize it. It will be given in the question. Okay, in the exam. Okay. Then we come to the current chapter which we were doing, and then we move on to heat and to first law of thermodynamics. So this is the last of the three things that you have to prepare for the upcoming test in heat and thermodynamics, and that is your kinetic theory of gases. So for that also you can refer to the module for the moment. If you go through this chapter from Resnick Halid, it will be even better. It will give you better understanding of theory. But for quick revision for the upcoming test and all, you can go through it from here because there's a lot of theory in this. So as you remember, we started with the assumptions of the kinetic model, that it's like very large intermolecular space. Then they move in random motion, which is called Brownian motion. Okay, all collisions are perfectly elastic. All these things. Okay. So you will not be asked theory questions directly, but obviously the questions are going to be numerical based. But you should have an idea about these assumptions and all this. Okay. So just go through this portion once. Then this derivation also that we had seen, that pressure of an ideal gas, how it is related to RMS velocity. So actually we had done the derivation of the RMS velocity in terms of Vx squares average or Vy squares average as Brownian motion first. And then we had come to this. So you can also go through my notes, my class notes for a more detailed version of this derivation. Derivation is there in HCV also, in Resnick also, you can go through this. But as I said, ultimately what is important is the formulae. Derivation is for your understanding, but for the application, This is the first important formula. Actually, this one. This is the first important formula, that RMS speed in terms of pressure and volume. RMS velocity is square root of 3 PV divided by N into M, or that is the same thing as square root of 3 PV divided by total number of molecules into molecular mass, whichever way we write it. Okay. And then there is the kinetic interpretation of temperature. So half mv RMS square is proportional to temperature. So from this relation we get that PV is equal to capital NKT, or PV is equal to nRT. Okay, so that is where the ideal gas equation comes from. So once you have PV equal to nRT, you put that back here. So VRMS also comes out to be in terms of temperature and mass, molecular mass, that is, or molar mass. Okay, so this is the important thing of kinetic theory of gases and the application of this, like the type of questions we've been doing in the last couple of classes. Okay. Now there's also this additional thing in kinetic theory of gases which is not so important from exam point of view, but it's called the Maxwell's distribution curve, or the Maxwell distribution law. So let's just go through that quickly once. Okay. Especially from your college exams point of view, you might need to know this. Okay. So basically, Maxwell Boltzmann obviously is the name of these pair of scientists who have developed this principle. So the distribution law basically means, that it describes the probability for a particle to be moving at a particular speed at a given temperature. So we know that at a given temperature for an ideal gas which has molar mass m, the RMS speed we know. The RMS speed is square root of 3 RT by m. But this is like the mean speed. No? It is the root mean square speed. What about the actual speeds? Not every molecule will be moving with this speed exactly. So there is a certain probability that certain number of molecules will be moving at double this speed, certain at half this speed, certain speeds which are extremely high, certain which are extremely low, etc. Okay. So that particular probability law is given by the Maxwell-Boltzmann equation, which is called the probability density function for speed u. So next page, I will explain to you what is the meaning of this probability density function for the speed u. So, okay, and according to that, the maximum number of molecules having a speed lying within a small range centered about the corresponding peak value, that is called the most probable speed. So from the distribution law, we get two important definitions. We get the definition for the most probable speed, okay, which we denote with the symbol Vp. Okay, so this is the most probable. And next page, we'll see the formula for this. Okay. So most probable speed is it's a small range of speeds which is around the speed which is having maximum probability, and that is called the most probable speed. Okay. And of course, the other property is the curve is non-symmetric and all that. So let's look at the curve in the next page. So this is something you need to additionally go through once. Okay. So this curve that is here, this is actually coming from experimental analysis and then statistical analysis on the data from experiment. So we don't need to understand where the formula has come from, but let me explain the formula to you. So this formula over here, which is written over here, this is the Maxwell distribution formula. This is the Maxwell Boltzmann distribution formula. Okay. So let me explain the formula itself, what it means. So this Maxwell distribution formula, first of all, this quantity, NV divided by N. What is this? This is like the fraction of, it's a probability fraction. It's a probability fraction. That is, NV is the number of molecules having a particular speed V at a given instant. That is a numerator over here, NV. This term NV, this is the number of molecules which are moving with a particular speed V. Okay. And N is nothing but the total number of molecules. So what this means that on this curve, if I pick up a particular speed, let's say V1, and I see that this graph is having a value x1 over here. So that x1 is n1 divided by n, which is basically number of molecules moving with the speed v1 divided by the total number of molecules in my gas sample. Okay. So if this is, for example, if this is 1 upon 10 raised power 3, that means 1,000th of all the molecules are moving with this particular speed v1. That is the meaning of this graph. Okay, so first of all, that is what is on each axis. On the y-axis, we have this probability fraction, which is nv by n. And on the horizontal axis, we have the velocity. So it is a graph of velocity versus the probability factor or the probability fraction. Okay. So obviously, if the graph is like this, then this one is this has a maximum probability. So the corresponding value of velocity is the most probable velocity. That is the most probable velocity, because maximum fraction of molecules have a probability of moving with that particular velocity. So it is called the most probable velocity, the definition we had seen in the last page. Okay. So don't worry about the exponential formula. We'll come back to that. First, understand what is the meaning of each of the terms. What is the y-axis and what is the x-axis? Yeah, so if it is 1 by 10, that means 1/10 or 10% of the molecules in my sample are moving with that particular velocity. So whatever the value of this fraction on the y-axis, that is the probability factor. If it is 1 by 1,000, that means it's 0.1%. If it is 1 by 10, that means it's 10%, or 1 in 10 molecules are having that particular velocity. So you can see whatever is the peak point over here, it will be a fraction less than 1, but it's having the peak probability. That means maximum probability of molecules are moving with that particular velocity, or the maximum fraction of molecules have the probability of moving with that particular velocity. Okay, so this is the meaning of the graph. So after doing statistical analysis on this graph, Maxwell Boltzmann had come up with this particular formula, that at a particular temperature, the value of this fraction, the probability fraction, is a function of the temperature according to this formula. I will write that formula and explain it once more to you, but just note this down first. Okay, so I'm just going to switch to my whiteboard for a minute. No, numericals will not be asked on this bit. Srishti, I will explain to you what the numericals will be asked on. Numericals based on Maxwell distribution law are going to be related to only two formulae. One is the formula for the most probable velocity, this formula. Most probable velocity is given by this formula, which is the same thing as square root of 3 RT divided by capital M. Okay. And the other thing is the mean speed, or what we call the average speed, this one. So V average or mean speed is given by the formula square root of 8 kT by pi small m is the same thing as 8 RT by pi m. Okay. And of course, the RMS speed, which we have seen from kinetic theory of gases earlier, that is square root of 3 kT by small m, which is the same as square root of 3 RT by capital M. Okay. So as formula, you need to memorize only these three. One you have already seen in kinetic theory of gases, we've been discussing earlier. The Maxwell distribution formula, you don't need to memorize this formula, but I'll explain it in a moment. I'll switch to my board and explain it. Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is 2, my mistake. Yeah, this is not 3. Thanks for pointing out. This one is 2. Okay. 3 is in the formula for RMS. Okay. Most probable is with 2, and average or mean speed has 8 upon pi as the factor. Okay, let me explain the whole thing. And I'm just switching to my whiteboard. So see, one thing you have to understand na कि Boltzmann constant क्या होता है? R divided by Avogadro's number. So therefore, K by small m is the same thing as R by capital M, because small m is number of molecules. Don't forget this, okay? That is, small m is Avogadro's number multiplied by number of moles. Sorry, multiplied by molar mass. Sorry, this is not number of molecules, it is molecular mass. That is mass of one molecule. And this is molar mass. That is mass of one mole. Okay. So for example, oxygen gas has molar mass of 32 grams. So it has molecular mass of 32 grams divided by Avogadro's number, which comes out to be 32 atomic mass units, as you know. But that's a different matter, that it comes out to be atomic mass number. Where Avogadro's number, you know, is 6.022 into 10 raised power 23 approximately. So that is why when we are talking about RMS speed, it is 3 kt by small m, but that's the same thing as 3 RT by capital M. Okay. Similarly, now most probable speed, Vp, is given by the formula 2 RT by capital M, which is the same thing as 2 kt divided by small m. And mean speed or average speed is given by the formula 8 RT by pi capital M. That's the same thing as 8 kt by pi small m. Okay. And that's why you have all these equations. PV equal to nRT is equivalent to saying that PV is equal to capital N kt. Yeah, that's correct. Okay. Now let's come back to the Maxwell-Boltzmann law. So the probability of molecule having a particular speed v, that is called the probability fraction, which is nv by n. Okay. So sometimes this is also written as, in certain textbooks you will see this is written as dnv divided by n instead of this, because obviously this, the numerator is very small compared to the denominator. Okay, where nv or dnv is the number of molecules moving at the speed v at the given instant. Okay. And n is total number of molecules in my gas sample. Okay. Now, as it turns out that this probability function or this probability fraction is given by a formula which comes from statistical analysis, and that formula is this. This kind of formula. I'll explain what this formula basically means here. Also write it like this. Okay, wait a minute. I'll explain the whole formula once more. Yeah, so this probability fraction, this term, it is given by this formula. So actually the proper way of writing this is not like this. It's this term is the same thing as 1 by n dn by dv, where this nv or dn by dv, this is the number of molecules which is having a velocity which is v at a particular instant. So from here you can see that we have dn by dv is four pi n upon into m upon 2 pi kt to the power 3 by 2 into v square e to the power minus of kinetic energy, that is half mv square divided by small kt. So here m is molecular mass, T is absolute temperature, okay, and small k is Boltzmann constant, that is R upon Avogadro's number. And obviously this is, so this is what we can call basically NV. So this is the relation. So hope the terms are all clear to you. Okay, what each term means, hope that is clear. No, this doesn't have to be memorized. No, Prachi, you don't have to remember this. There are no direct questions based on this formula. From this only, you have to remember the formula for most probable speed and the mean speed or the average speed. These are the ones that we require. The type of numerical applications are only the ones that we have discussed in kinetic theory of gases earlier. Only those type of numerical applications are going to come. So, okay, so now let me explain what the graph of the Maxwell distribution curve denotes. So the graph of Maxwell distribution curve is actually NV or dn by dv with respect to v, and At a particular temperature, if we plot the graph, it comes out to be a curve like this. It is asymmetric. It has a peak at a particular value. So let's say this is at temperature T1. So first of all, you can see that this is the most probable speed. Okay. Now the other thing to understand about this curve is that if I take at a particular velocity v1, if I draw a small strip, okay, which is for a range of velocities from v1 to v1 plus dv1, okay, then the area of that strip is nothing but nv or dn by dv. Okay. So the area of that strip dA is nothing but nv into dv. So that is nothing but dn by dv into dv. So that is nothing but dn. So that area of that strip is the number of molecules having a speed ranging between v to v plus dv. So this is the interpretation of the graph, that between a speed v and a speed v plus dv. Okay. So the value of speed here at the first point of this strip is v. The value of the strip at the second point on the strip is v plus dv. So the total number of molecules which are having a speed in this small range between v and v plus dv, that becomes the area of the strip. Okay, therefore, the total area under the graph becomes how much? It becomes the total number of molecules. Okay. So the total area that is integration of nv dv, or that is integration of dn by dv into dv, that is integration of dn, is nothing but n, which is the total number of molecules. Okay. That's one important thing to be able to interpret from the Maxwell distribution curve. Okay. Now, as you can see, the typical values of speed is of the order of magnitude of 10 raised power 2 meters per second. So 1 into 10 raised power 2, 2 into 10 raised power 2, 3 into 10 raised power 2. These are the type of velocities that we have here. For ideal gases, in conditions which are not of extremely high pressure or extremely low pressure, or not of extremely high or low temperature, something near about the standard STP conditions, the typical values of the speed are of this kind of order of magnitude. Okay. Now, the other important thing is that to be able to compare for two different temperatures. So, for example, if I make this distribution curve, draw this distribution curve at a higher temperature, the peak will shift like this. The distribution will become like this. Oh, sorry, for lower temperature, the peak will shift like this, because the most probable speed has to decrease. It's a function of temperature. So here you can see I've drawn the graph such that T1 is greater than T2. So at different temperatures, according to the formula, you'll see that there are different kind of shapes that we get. They're always asymmetrical shapes. And with temperature increasing, the peak shifts in the forward direction. That is, the most probable speed increases. So does the average speed, and so does the RMS speed. So this is some indirect theoretical knowledge that you have to know about Maxwell's distribution curve. Even though you will not be asked direct numerical problems on the formula of Maxwell distribution curve. The only numerical problems you'll be asked is, in addition to RMS velocity, you should know the formula of most probable speed and mean speed. Yes, that's correct, Shikhar. The most probable speed increases, but the probability of the number of molecules having most probable speed, that decreases. Because you can see the peak is coming to a lower point on the probability axis, but it's going to a higher point on the velocity axis. But also as the curve is more flat compared to the one at T2, which is at lower temperature, you can see that the average speed increases. Okay. So now, as I said, from kinetic theory of gases, the important formulae for us are these formulae. In order of how we had done the derivations, the first derivation was the relation between pressure, volume, and this thing, uh, RMS speed. Okay. Then there was kinetic interpretation of temperature. So from this we got the relation that PV is equal to nRT, or PV is equal to capital N KT. Okay. So this was important formula. Then this was important formula. The next one was put this back in the formula of RMS speed. So 3RT by M, or square root of 3 KT divided by small m. Okay. And then from this we had the important formula that half m Vrms square is 3 by 2 KT. Okay. So from this we also got that the average kinetic energy per molecule per degree of freedom, that was half KT. Okay. So then from that we saw that the average kinetic energy per molecule becomes F by 2 KT, where F is degrees of freedom. And as I told you, the important thing you need to remember is that degrees of freedom is 3 for monoatomic gases, and degrees of freedom is 5 for diatomic gases. Okay. Now to this list of formula, you also add the most probable speed formula, and the mean speed formula, or the average speed formula. Okay, this. So these are all the formulae that you have to remember, and we'll be applying in questions. Okay. So this was equipartition of energy. Yeah, I'll scroll up, but just keep a note of this thing first. Okay, so these are the important formula. RMS in terms of pressure, volume. Okay, then your ideal gas equation, which is coming from kinetic interpretation of temperature. Then back to RMS, but in terms of temperature, and then equipartition of energy. Okay, the concept of degrees of freedom for monoatomic and diatomic, and finally what we've added today: most probable speed and average speed. So these are our important formulae. Okay. So just make sure you have a list of this and you know how to apply these formulae in context of the type of questions that we've done in class in the last couple of lectures. Since we started kinetic theory of gases last to last lecture, and then in the previous lecture, as we continued into first law of thermodynamics, we were seeing number of questions where we were using these formulae. Yeah, small n is number of moles. Okay. Small n is number of moles, and capital M is number of molecules. Okay, so small n is number of molecules divided by Avogadro's number, and similarly small m is molecular mass. and capital M is molar mass. So small m is capital M divided by Avogadro's number. Okay. And that is why Boltzmann constant is universal gas constant divided by Avogadro's number. So additionally, we should be always clear about these relations also. Yeah, actually, Durgesh, in kinetic theory of gases, the numericals are based more on RMS velocity and ideal gas equation and equipartition of energy. These two additional formulae we have seen today, very rarely you will get direct questions based on this. The main thing is these formulae which we have written on top here, and their application in those type of questions we saw, where equation of state has to be used, PV equal to nRT or PV equal to nKT. Equipartition of energy concept has to be used along with this. This is the main formula set. Yeah, average kinetic energy is there in your syllabus, but not so much for numerical problems. As I said, the most important formula are these ones: RMS, equation of state, and equipartition of energy. That is where the conceptual questions will come. Most probable speed and average speed will be direct formula based questions, not the conceptual questions. No, theory questions will not come in your JE or NEET type papers. No? Theory questions are only in your board type of school type of papers. No? So that's why I said that Maxwell's distribution curve is for something for your knowledge, but you don't need to memorize it or anything for your JE exams. Okay. The formula that you have to memorize, I've just listed below. And you will see that these are the formulae that we've used in numerical problems. We've covered all types of numerical problems. Yeah, I will tell you about sums from HCV also. I was going through the module first, so I'll just mark out questions from the module also to do. Okay, very good. So one final look at these are the formulae. So we'll just go back to the module once. Okay. So Maxwell's distribution curve explained in the module. This is it. Okay. And the three formulae. Then of course degrees of freedom, equipartition of energy, all this is explained. Okay. And then there is the concept of internal energy of ideal gas. This is what we were discussing in first law of thermodynamics last time. So internal energy of an ideal gas is nothing but the kinetic energy of its molecules. So this is something important for us. So the internal energy is the total kinetic energy. So that is nothing but number of molecules into average kinetic energy per molecule. So that is this formula here. And as you can see, okay, capital N into K is the same thing as small n into R. So that's how this becomes this. Yes, yes, I'm revising everything that is in the major test. So up to kinetic theory of gases, up to the last lecture that we have done previous week. So all that is part of your portion for the upcoming test. So today's lecture I'm doing as a revision lecture only for your upcoming test. I'm not going to teach anything particularly new. See some questions, but it will give you an idea of exactly what all you need to prepare for your test coming up. Okay, is it clear, Durgesh? Okay, good. All right, let's move on. So equipartition of energy, then after that, so that completes kinetic theory of gases. So all these solved examples you can go through. Okay. Along with the questions that we have done in class. So you can go through these illustrated example and then in chapter exercise 3. So what you do is in your module now, you prepare up to in chapter exercise 3. And then I'm also giving you a list of questions to do from HC Verma. Okay. So actually in the previous section, we have gone ahead with first law of thermodynamics also, but you don't need to prepare that for the upcoming test. Okay. So you can take this next week. This week, what you do is you do up to in chapter exercise 3 from your module for your upcoming test. Okay. And then you switch to HC Verma if you have HC Verma part 2. Okay, so I'm switching back to my whiteboard and I'll give you a list of questions to do from HC Verma. Okay, so from the chapter of thermal expansion, so in HC Verma, this chapter is called heat and temperature. It's basically about thermal expansion. And also thermometry. So thermometry is something we'll look into today a little bit. Okay, but the main part in this is that thermal expansion. So in the exercise, again, you can do all questions other than the ones which are thermal stress. So leave out questions. So I'll tell you which questions to leave out and you can do the others. So question 1 to 25. These questions you can do. or you can do a select set of questions if you don't have that much time. So you can say this is the important set of questions, but I think you should be able to do all the questions 1 to 25. It doesn't take too much time to do these questions. So try to do all the questions. If you have limited time, then you do the select set which I'm giving. Okay, so this is this chapter. Now in this we will go through something called thermometry in a bit of time. So it's nothing extraordinary really. It's just about the principle of different type of thermometers. There's something called constant volume gas thermometer. There's something called resistance thermometer or platinum resistance thermometer. And of course we have the mercury thermometer, which we all know about. So how the calibration of thermometers is done, etc. Right. Then the next chapter in H.C. Verma is in fact kinetic theory of gases. Calorimetry comes later. They have a different order. So let's see. Okay, now this chapter has some extra things which you don't need to do. Okay, extra concepts which are there, not needed for JEE. So you don't need to go through these. Okay. So these are the concept of humidity. Okay. Phase diagrams, which we will do in chemistry but not needed here. And the concept of dew and fog. The concept of vapor pressure. Yeah, the concept of evaporation and vapor pressure. All these you don't need to do. Okay. Is there in HC Verma as extra knowledge, but you don't need to do. Okay. So this all comes after the section on kinetic theory and this thing Maxwell's curve. It comes after this. So do up to Maxwell's distribution curve and then you can skip this part. Okay, now let's come to the exercises. So in kinetic theory of gases, first of all, you do some of the worked out examples. So do worked out examples 1 to 7. Then 11, 12, 13, 14, That's it. Then come to the main exercise. This is from HC Verma, beta. Module I told you, from the module you have to do the in chapter exercise 3, 1, 2 and 3 along with the solved examples. Okay, Rakshit, I took you through the module. In that I showed you that up to in chapter exercise 3 of kinetic theory of gases along with solved examples. Okay. Okay, so this is from your kinetic theory of gases. Okay. For the moment you do these questions, it's enough for your. Then we can do some more questions later also. Then calorimetry is a easy topic, so you don't need to do so much. In calorimetry from HC Verma, what you do is just go through the worked out examples. All of them. Just go through them once. They're very easy. Everything is based on that same formula of specific heat capacity and latent heat. So once you go through my lecture notes and see the questions we've done in class, they are just repeated versions of that question. So nothing really extra or difficult. So that is about calorimetry. Now, before we move on to anything else, we'll quickly discuss about the concepts of thermometers or what is called thermometry. Exercise questions, Durgesh, later when we do first law of thermodynamics next week onwards. Then we'll pick up the exercise questions. For up to kinetic theory of gases, just do this much, it's enough. Okay. You have to also do a thorough revision of work by energy, don't forget. You know? So you have limited time this week. Okay. So also you have to do a thorough revision of work by energy. Okay, now thermometry or principle of thermometer, working principle of thermometers. So thermometers function on the concept that if a particular physical quantity which is easy to measure okay, is directly proportional to temperature, then it can be used in a thermometer. So for example, any quantity x, let's say, okay, x is directly proportional to temperature. Okay. So then we can use a scale on which x0 is the value of x, is the value of x at t equal to 0 degrees C, and x100 is the value of x at t equal to 100 degrees C. So this is, as you know, the melting point of ice, and this is the boiling point of water at standard temperature pressure. Okay. So then if xt is the value of x at any arbitrary temperature t, then so this is called the principle of calorimetry, principle of thermometry, and it's nothing but unitary method. This is the principle of thermometry. Okay. And it's basically nothing but unitary method. It is like this, that if x is proportional to temperature, then delta x by delta t should be constant. Okay. So that's why xt minus x0 upon t minus 0 should be equal to x at 100 minus x naught upon 100 minus 0. So it just comes from this application of unitary method. So it's nothing extraordinary really. I mean, we don't even need to give it such a fancy name, principle of thermometry, but this is the idea of principle of thermometry. So we'll see three examples of the application of principle of thermometry. Okay. The applications being a standard mercury thermometer, where x is nothing but the length of a mercury column. Then the constant volume gas thermometer, where the value of x is nothing but the pressure of a gas at constant volume. And the third will be a resistance thermometer, where the value of x is nothing but the resistance of a platinum wire, which varies with temperature. So if any particular physical quantity varies with temperature proportionately, and it is easy enough to measure that physical quantity, then we can define a temperature scale by the formula below, the principle of thermometry formula, and we can design a thermometer using that particular physical principle. That is the principle of thermometry. The three types of thermometers we'll discuss about. As I said, there is the mercury thermometer, where X is L, that is the length of the mercury column. And as you know here, actually the formula is like this, that length at some temperature T is L naught into 1 plus alpha into T minus U, where alpha is the coefficient of linear expansion of mercury. So LT is equal to L naught, 1 plus T alpha, and L100 is equal to L naught, 1 plus 100 alpha. So from that you have the relation that this. Okay. So for example, you can get a very simple direct question like this, that if L naught is equal to, let's say something, 250 centimeters for a metallic rod, instead of a mercury thermometer we are using a metallic rod, and L100 is equal to 251.2 centimeters. This is at T equal to 0 degrees C, at T equal to 100 degrees C. Now, if at a certain temperature T, the length is this much, then find that temperature. So all you have to do is you have to understand this linear relationship and apply this unitary method kind of formula, and you will get this. So just try this out with. Okay, so anybody got the answer for this? Yeah, correct. That's good. So we can see here that 0.75, okay, divided by T will be equal to 1.2 divided by 100. So T is just 0.75 into 100 divided by 1.2. So 75 by 1.2 is, we can write as 25 by zero point 0.4, or 250 by 4, which is this. No, so something very straight and direct like this. Now the two other types of thermometers are constant volume gas thermometer. So in this, what we have is a gas chamber, which is of constant volume. Now it's made of insulated material from outside. So there is heat insulation here. But this is the conducting head of the thermometer. Okay. So this head has conducting wall, and the gas is in the entire place here. So whatever temperature we keep over here, that becomes the temperature of the gas inside. So PV naught is equal to nRT. So the pressure of the gas is proportional to temperature. So that is how a constant volume gas thermometer works. Okay. And similarly, we have platinum resistance thermometer. Yeah, so Shikhar, what is happening is that in this container, we have a constant volume of gas V naught, and most of the part of the container is heat insulated. So heat cannot come in or go out from these walls. But the head of the container over here, that is made of, that's conducting. So whichever body's temperature we want to measure, we place it against this conducting head. So the gas inside is at same temperature as that body. So in equilibrium, what happens is that the entire gas exists at that temperature. So the pressure of the gas inside becomes proportional to the temperature. So this is the basic working principle. The actual apparatus is a little more complicated. So you have to measure the pressure also. So there is a mechanism for that. But this is the working principle of the constant volume gas thermometer. You can go through this from HCV also. In the chapter heat and temperature. Is it clear, Shikhar? Okay, next is the platinum resistance thermometer. So I'm coming to that. nRT होगा. N is the number of moles. Equation of state now. So here the volume is constant. So you can see that the pressure is this constant value into temperature. So that's how we understand that pressure is proportionate to temperature. Pressure is some constant into temperature, where the constant is this value. Is it clear now, Samarth? Okay. So like that, in a platinum resistance thermometer, the resistance of a platinum wire R, that is proportional to temperature. So we have the relation that this becomes the unitary method formula. Okay, so now we'll pick up some more questions for practice. So okay, so I'm going to start with a question from thermal expansion. So this is from your module exercise. Start with this question. Question number 4. This is exercise 1 in your module. Now the thing is, exercise 1, don't do all the questions because there are questions from elasticity and all also. So there are limited questions that we can do. So it's page 47 in your module 3, page 47. So for example, in this also, this question we leave out because it's based on the concept of buoyancy, which we haven't studied yet. Okay. This earlier question also you will leave out because it is based on elasticity. This question, but this question we can do. This is also direct question based on what we've learned, the pendulum one. Okay, so let's see the fourth question. So coefficient of apparent expansion of a liquid in a copper vessel is C. Okay, and in a silver vessel is S. So what is happening is that, let us say, the coefficient of expansion for the liquid, the true one, is gamma. This is the true value. So the coefficient of apparent expansion in copper vessel will be gamma minus gamma of copper, and in silver it will be gamma minus gamma of silver. Okay, so from this we have to find out the coefficient of linear expansion of silver. So this is equation 1, this is equation 2. So from equation 1 and 2 you can see that, for example, C minus S is equal to uh, gamma for silver minus gamma for copper. Okay. So from this you can see that gamma for silver is equal to C minus S plus gamma for copper. So alpha for silver will become 1/3 of gamma for silver. So it will become C minus S plus gamma C divided by 3. So this is the correct option. Yes. Last step, this is the relationship between gamma and alpha, na, Shikhar. Any material's gamma is equal to 3 times its alpha, na? Okay, so just that concept we have to use. Okay, let's move on. These questions all you can solve later. Okay, they are, I've done them in class actually, but I've done them indirectly in class with numerical values. All these questions 5, 6, 7, we have done them in class exercise. Okay. Then eighth question you leave out because it is again based on Bulk's modulus of elasticity. So that is, it's based on Bulk's modulus of elasticity. So that is in the elasticity chapter. So leave this out for the moment. Okay. We will do this when we do elasticity. Okay. Let's come to the 10th question. Let's come to this 10th question. So coefficient of volume expansion is given to us as 1 into 10 raised power minus 3 per degree C. Okay. For the metal vessel, and it contains benzene. So this is for the metal, and contains benzene which has a coefficient of volume expansion of also the same. Okay, so let me explain the concept in this question, then we'll come back to the values in the data. Which question you are talking about, Sikhar? What do you want me to explain? Oh, okay. Okay, so let's understand this concept of pressure exerted by a liquid. So if we have a container which has an area of cross section of A naught, okay, at temperature T naught, and now in this container we have a liquid which is filled up to a height of H naught, again at this temperature. It has a density rho naught. Then at the bottom, the pressure exerted by the liquid is rho naught G H naught, okay, at T equal to T naught. Okay. Now let's say the container, it's a metallic container, like in this example. So the metallic container has a coefficient of expansion of alpha m, that is a linear expansion. Okay. And the liquid inside, this has a coefficient of volume expansion gamma L. So what is going to happen at a new temperature? Let's understand. So at T equal to T naught plus delta T, at this new temperature, okay, there will be some new height of liquid, there will be some new density of liquid, and accordingly there will be new pressure. So this height also would have changed because the container is expanded. The density of the liquid would have changed. So the pressure would have changed to rho G H. So let's say this is the pressure P2, this was the pressure P1. So we have to find the relation between P2 and P1. So now what is happening? At T equal to T naught plus delta T, the volume of liquid is, let us say, V2. So that is the area of the container into H. Okay. Whereas here, the volume of the liquid was, let us say, A naught into H naught. Okay. So it has become like this. So now what has happened to the area? The base area of the container, A2, that would have become A naught into 1 plus beta of the metal into delta T. So it has become A naught 1 plus 2 times alpha of the metal into delta T. This has become the new area. Okay. So from this, whereas the volume of the liquid is equal to the original volume into 1 plus gamma of the liquid into delta T. Okay, so substitute this on this side. So V naught into 1 plus gamma of the liquid into delta T is equal to A naught into 1 plus beta of the metal into delta T into H. So what is the new value of height of the liquid column? It is V naught by H naught, sorry, V naught by A naught into this kind of factor, 1 plus gamma of liquid upon 1 plus beta of metal into delta T. Whereas you can see from here that H naught was equal to V naught by A naught. So the new height has become the original height into 1 plus gamma of liquid into delta T upon 1 plus beta of metal into delta T. Okay. So just note down up to this step first. Make sure you understand up to this step. Then we will understand about the pressure, because for the pressure we also need to understand how the density has changed. So first understand how the height has changed. This is how the height of the liquid column has changed. And the new pressure is density into G into H. So density would have also changed because the liquid has expanded, obviously. Okay, now let's understand how the density changes. Now we know that the density of the liquid would have changed from the original value, okay, to the new value of this, or this is a formula we've seen before, okay, because density is mass upon volume, okay. So rho naught is m upon v naught, rho is m by v, okay. So that's how we get this relation, that so now we bring this to the numerator with the binomial approximation method. So that's how we get this relation. So now the new pressure we can see P2 is equal to rho GH. So it is rho naught. We can write this upon also, or we can bring this to the numerator. It's up to us. Okay. Into G, which is the same thing, but into H, which is H naught, into 1 plus gamma of liquid into delta T upon 1 plus beta of metal into delta T. So if you compare this pressure with the original pressure P1, remember P1 was rho naught G H naught. If we compare these two relations now, compare this equation 1 here with this equation 2 here. So we'll get P2 is equal to P1 upon 1 plus beta of metal into delta T. And again, this can come to the numerator, so we can approximate it as P1 into 1 minus beta of metal into delta T. And remember, beta of metal will be 2 times alpha of metal. Okay, so hope this question is clear. Yeah, Shikhar, I'll do that. Yeah, I'm coming to that, Samarth. Have you people studied moment of inertia and rotational mechanics yet? Okay, good. So the 14th question is just based on that. Yeah. So one or two formulae you know, na, like moment of inertia of disk is mr square by 2 or rod is ml square by 12. ये पता है आपको? Okay, so the 12th question, the 14th question is based on that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So let's move on to this question now. Okay. So moment of inertia corresponding to a small temperature change. So we know that what is the relationship of moment of inertia with length. Any length parameter, it's a square relationship. Okay, because for example, moment of inertia of ring is mr square, and r is a length parameter. Moment of inertia of disk is mr square by 2. Moment of inertia of a rod about its center of mass is ml square by 12, like this. So because moment of inertia comes from integration of r square dm, so moment of inertia dimensionally has length square. Okay, so now you can see that for a delta t change in temperature, the fractional change in length is alpha delta t. Okay, so the fractional change in moment of inertia will become 2 times the fractional change in length. So it will become 2 times alpha delta t. This is very similar to the logic we had seen for time period of a pendulum. We had seen that time period of a pendulum, that time period was proportional to temperature to the power, sorry, was proportional to length to the power half or square root of L. Okay. So therefore, the fractional change in time period was half of the fractional change in length. So that was 1 by 2 alpha delta t. So this was also one more important formula we've seen earlier. Variation of time period of a pendulum with temperature change. So that's half alpha delta t. Whereas moment of inertia is 2 times delta, alpha delta t. No, we didn't differentiate. We're just using the concept of errors. Samaj, we are just using this concept of errors. Okay, so I'll explain that thing again. So this thing, if y is equal to some constant into x to the power n, okay, then y plus delta y is equal to c into x plus delta x to the power n. Okay. Yes. So if delta x is small compared to x, then delta x by x is small compared to 1. So 1 plus delta x by x to the power n can be approximated as 1 plus n times delta x by x. So this concept comes from here. Okay. So therefore, y plus delta y will be approximated as c into x to the power n into 1 plus n times delta x by x. Okay. So this is the error propagation concept that you learned in units, dimensions, and errors also. Okay. So now compare this equation with this equation. So you can see that like this. So for example, if time period is proportional to length to the power half and delta L by L percentage change is, let's say, 0.6%. So therefore, delta T by T percentage change will become 0.3%. If moment of inertia is proportional to length to the power 2, then if delta L by L percentage is 0.6%, then percentage change or fractional change in moment of inertia will become twice of this. So it will become 1.2%. So this concept. You can also get it by differentiation, but it's actually the other way around. The formula of differentiation that we get, that differentiation of x to the power n is nx to the power n minus 1. This actually comes from this method. It comes from binomial approximation. That's how we solve that limit. So it's actually a little bit like in reverse. The differentiation formula comes from this principle. Anyway, people, so hope you have understood these concepts that we have revised today. So just go through my instructions in this session, that what all things I've told you to revise from thermal expansion, calorimetry, and kinetic theory of gases, and also make sure you revise the questions we have done in the last two lectures, kinetic theory of gases lecture and the lecture after that we have done. Those type of questions will explain how to use the RMS velocity and equation of state and equipartition of energy type of relations for those type of numerical problems. So that should be more than enough for your test coming up, and make sure you revise work by energy also. So wish you all the best for the test coming up on Sunday. That's it for today, people. Okay, we can do that. You can also send me the doubts if you have, Durgesh, in work by energy.